You guys see my screen?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, everybody else, you guys see the screen?
Yes, I see it.
All right, so,
Yes.
okay, very good. All right, so this is our last lecture of the semester. Today we're going to talk about some signed numbers or signed numbers. So previously we worked with the real numbers and we did the order of operations, fractions, decimals, and everything. But every time we used convenient numbers and signs to do the operations, for example, 5 minus 3, I don't know, 17 minus 1, something that of this nature. But today we're going to see something like negative 2 plus 5. Okay, something that we're not familiar with, or minus 1, minus 7. Okay, maybe even 2 minus 8. We're going to learn how to do these kind of operations. If you don't already know how to do this, today we're going to explain in detail all the rules of all the operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Then we're going to see how to do the order of operations with multiples of these. We're going to throw in some multiplications as well. For example, this. Also some division. Okay, I'm going to do something like this, and I'm going to combine all in one operation. For instance, this multiply negative 2 plus 3. Okay, so negative 2 plus 3, maybe some division here, 5, and so on. So we're going to combine pretty much all of the operations at the end. Okay, so let's first start with addition and subtraction, then multiplication and division. Finally, we'll see how to do the order of operations.
Down.
Okay, so the first part, we're going to do addition and subtraction. Okay, so in order to understand that better, let's start things with what we call the number line, which is basically a straight line with numbers on it. Something like this. There's always 0 in the middle. You have some positive numbers here, negatives here. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, for example. And then to the left of the 0, we have negative numbers, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. Okay, so when you see 5 take away 2, no big deal, we know that's 3. Okay, but when you see something like negative 1 plus, let's say, 4, or just negative 1 plus 3, for example. What's negative 1 plus 3?
2.
2. You mean positive 2? That's right.
Positive 2. Yeah.
Okay. What about negative 3 minus 2?
Negative 5.
Negative
Yeah,
5.
negative 5.
Very good. What if we have 4 minus 9?
Positive 5.
Negative 5.
Negative 5.
Negative 5. Okay, so this can look confusing. Let's actually see how to do this with the number line. So when you say negative 1 plus 3, so So basically we're going to start from -1 on the number line. And then if we add, we go to the right of that number. So we're going to start from here. If we add in, we're going to the right of that number 3 steps. If we subtract, we go to the left. So in this case, we're going to start from here, go to the right 3 units, 3 steps. So -1 is here. Then we're going to count 3 units. 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3. That's right. 1, 2, and 3. That's why the answer is 2. It's +2 to the right of 0. For this one, the reason why we say -5 is because we start from here, and then which direction do we go? On the number.
Two place in the left.
That's right, 2 places to the left. So we're going to start from here, which is over here. Start from here, goes 2 steps to the left, and where you end, that's the answer. So we're going to start from -3, go to the left. -3 is here, so we're going to 1, 2, that's -5. That's why we say -5. Here, same thing. So we start from 4, and then we go, this is it's a bit too much. Let's do a smaller one. So let's say we have this minus, let's say 5. What is the answer to this one, second one?
-1.
That's right, 4 minus 5 is -1. Because this time we're going to start from 4, which is here. And then since we're subtracting, we're going to the left 5 units or 5 steps. So start from here, go 5 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We end right here. That's why the answer is -1. So that's the reasoning behind this, if you want to see it from the perspective of a number line. If you want to see it from a different point of view, for example, you would say, oh, I have 1 negative here, and I have 3 positives. If I cancel 1 against 1, the positives win by 2. Okay, so we have 1, we can cancel 1 against 1, but we're going to have 2 positives left. You can look at it that way. Here you say these basically are of the same team or the same color. We have 3 negatives, and we have 2 negatives. In total, they make 5 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's another way to look at it. This the same as this. 2 signs, one of them wins by a difference. The difference here is 2. Here, same sign, you can say that same team, nobody wins, just come together to make a -5. Same thing here, so this team wins by 5 because the negatives are 5, the positives are 4, so this wins by this much, and so on. We can write the rules now. We don't have to do the number line every time. Imagine if you have larger numbers, let's say you have -200 plus 500. We're not going to draw a large line and start counting 100 times or something. We can conclude the rule from here. So basically, again, here the rule, we have 2 different signs. One of them wins, usually the one with the higher number. That's the one that, that's the number that we get the sign from. So here, 3 is positive, 1 is negative. So we pick the sign of the higher number, and then we see the difference. So one of them wins, and the difference is basically the margin between the 2, which is 2. In this case, 2. We're going to apply the same rule here. So which sign do we pick? Which sign wins?
Positive.
Positive, that's right. By how much? And what's the difference?
300.
300. Okay, so this applies to any numbers of any value. So we'll pick the sign of the higher number. One of them is got to win, so you say the difference is basically the subtraction of the 2. Take the higher minus the lower of the 2, and you get 300. Okay, that's why we put the 300 here. So get the sign of the higher number and subtract when you have different signs. If you have the same signs, no sign wins. It's the same sign stays the same. Even if you have, let's say, 100 minus 400. What is this equal to?
Is equal to 500 negative.
That's right, negative 500. So it's the same sign, stays the same. We combine, we add. Here, if we have different signs, we do the difference, meaning subtract. If we have the same sign, keep that sign. Nobody wins. It's the same team, same sign. Just combine them together. You get 500. Okay, so these only apply to addition and subtraction. Do not confuse this with
Say
multiplication.
that again, Professor.
I'll write it down. I'll write it down for you. So these two rules again only apply to addition and subtraction. Do not confuse these with the multiplication and division. They're completely different. So there's only two cases you need to remember here. Number one, with different signs. With different signs. So keep the sign, keep the higher sign. By that we mean the sign of the higher number. And subtract. Subtract, or in other words, find the difference. Okay, if you have different signs, do the difference, meaning subtract. So different signs, higher, keep the higher, I should say here, higher sign. Okay, keep higher sign and subtract. This means subtract. That applies to these problems, also these problems. There's another case. Is where you have the same sign. Same sign meaning this. What's the rule here? Same sign, what do you do? Same sign.
You keep the same sign.
That's right. Keep that sign. Whatever the sign is, it could be two positives.
Or negative.
Keep that sign. And do what?
And add.
That's right, and add. That's the difference here. 1 and 1 here, when we have different signs, we subtract the same sign, keep that sign, and add. Same sign, keep that sign, and add. So for addition and subtraction, if you remember these two sentences, understand them, not just remember them, you'll never get any signs of addition or subtraction wrong. Okay, this is a rule. If you want to forget about the number line, you could do that. You don't have to think about it too much. You don't have to do the moves in your head. This may take your time, but if you remember it this way, I believe you can get the answer quickly and easily. Okay, so 2 steps. Always try to get the sign first, and then get the value. So for example, here again, 2 different signs. Okay, I'm gonna pick the plus. I'll write the plus down, and then figure out the value, which means in this case we subtract. In these we add. Okay, so that's basically there's other rules for addition and subtraction. Like I said, don't confuse these with multiplication and division of numbers. They're a lot different. So they're actually even easier. There's not a lot of stuff to think about with multiplication or division. We have 2 rules for multiplication. When you multiply 2 negatives for same signs, the result will always be
Negative.
Positive.
always be positive. Again,
Me.
this is multiplication. Do not confuse that with this. These 2 negatives stay negative because this is not a multiplication, it's not a division. It's basically a subtraction.
But in multiplication, negative times negative is positive.
That's right, always. If you multiply same sign, even with positive and positive. So I didn't need to write positive and positive. Everybody knows that.
Mhm.
Trying to narrow this to only 2 rules here and 2 rules here. The obvious one, we don't have to write them, okay? So we want to minimize the number of rules to remember to a minimum. So if you multiply the same signs, you get a positive. What if you multiply different signs, positive and the negative?
Negative.
This is always going to be negative. Whichever comes first, maybe the minus may come first and then the plus. Either way, if you multiply the same sign, it's always going to be positive. If you add in, if you multiply in different signs, always going to be negative. Regardless of the values of the numbers, we don't care what numbers the numbers are, the signs are going to be this. The value, we get it by multiplying. Unlike here, the sign depends on the value of the number. That's why we said get the sign of the higher number. Okay, get the sign of the higher number. Here, it does not depend on the value of the number. The sign depends on multiplying the signs of the two numbers. And if you do, for example, 2 multiply that -3. So again, when you don't see anything between a number and parentheses, this means what operation?
Multiplication.
Oh,
Right, so 2, nothing here means multiply. You can write it this way if you want to. And then get the sign first. What's the sign?
-6.
That's right, negative and positive, always going to be negative. So you write that. And then since we're multiplying, we get that. You may also see something like this. This also means a multiplication. Okay, there's nothing here. So we can think of this as -4 times 2, which is
-8.
-8. You may also see this. If you don't see anything again between parentheses or between a number and parentheses, the operation is a multiplication. So what's -3 times -1?
+3.
That's right. It's negative times a negative. This rule is always going to be positive and 3. Okay, so no big deal here. Same rules apply to decimals, fractions, every type of number that we've seen. Mixed numbers, everything applies to them. Okay, the signs are independent here. They don't depend on the values of the numbers. So that's multiplication. Division is about the exact same thing. In terms of how to get the sign, the exact same rules. And then instead of multiply, we divide. Okay, so division. Same rules, negative, divide, and negative would always be
Positive.
Positive.
positive, that's right. And if you divide different numbers, different signs, you're gonna get
Negative.
negative. Again, doesn't matter which one comes first, doesn't matter which one comes first. Different signs in the multiplication and division, it's always going to be negative. If you multiply or divide the same signs, it's always going to be positive. Division basically looks like this, or as a fraction. Fraction and division are the same thing. So first, again, get your sign. Secondly, get your value, or simplify your fraction if possible, or if you're trying to get a decimal, do the division, whatever. So here, the sign will be
-5.
right? Get the negative, so it's a positive divided negative, positive divided negative, and this. You may also see, let's say 18, -18 divided by 6. This will be the sign first is going to be
Negative.
right, or negative divide positive. this is the operation. These are the signs, so negative. 18
Is 18 or is 8? Oh, negative 3.
will be negative. You may also have two negatives. Let's say if you see a fraction like this, 21 divided by negative 21 divided by negative 7. Again, it's a division. Get your sign first. So the sign would be
Positive.
right. Negative over negative is the same as negative divide negative or a negative multiply negative. It's going to be a positive and
3.
that's right, 3. Okay, so no big deal here. Again, these can be confusing. The two minuses here, remember what to do. Multiplication also, remember what to do. Now let's see how to combine all these basically in one operation. We're going to use the order of operations to simplify. We've already used and learned the order of operations in the past lectures, but we used convenient numbers like these. We didn't use signed number like this. But today we're going to combine order of operations with all these rules and simplify basically various types of operations with random signs and a lot of minuses. So we're going to call the order of operations. With signed number or signed numbers. Okay, I'm gonna start with something simple like this. Let's say we have negative 5. We can add another one to multiplication here. When you see a negative and you see, for example, negative 7. So again, when you don't see anything between parentheses for a number and parentheses, think of this negative in front of the parentheses as a negative 1. So this will be negative 1 multiply negative 7, which is
Negative 8.
not negative. We have a
Positive.
multiplication
Mhm.
turns into positive 8. In other words, this is what we called a double negative. So a double negative turns into a positive. Basically, think of it as negative 1. You times them, you get positive. So that's what we're going to do here. So whenever you see a double negative in an operation, first thing you want to do is deal with it first. Turn that into a positive, and then the expression will make more sense. It becomes easier. So where do we start from here?
Negative 5 plus 1.
Plus 1, that's right. So we're going to use this basically, use the order of operations, parentheses first if we have, if not this, if not multiplication. Basically, we have a multiplication here. So think of this as a multiplication, a negative as a negative 1. So we're going to evaluate the multiplication before any other operation of addition or subtraction, before this subtraction here. So negative times a negative, plus 1. So whenever you see a double negative, just turn it into a positive right away. Bring down the negative 5. So we're done with the multiplication. Now it's an addition or subtraction, basically using these. What is this equal to?
Equal to negative 4.
Very good. So we pick the sign of the higher number, which is negative, and the difference for subtract the numbers. So 5 take away 1, be 4. Okay, so again, figure out which operation to do. And then when you figure out the operation, you use the appropriate rules, either addition or subtraction or multiplication and division. They're totally different.
Professor, can you do another double negative?
Okay, so let's say you have 7 and you have minus 2. Okay.
So what you're saying is that first negative becomes a 1, a negative 1.
Mm-hmm. or simply multiply these. So that's a multiplication, just multiply them. So -1 times -2 would be
2, -2, +2.
+2. In other words, when you see a double negative, just turn it into a positive. Multiply these two negative times the negative is positive. And now we can do 9 here. And it is also possible to have, let's say, -3. Same idea here. So we're going to times the signs first. What do you get if you times these two?
Negative.
Right.
Negative.
-1. So
-1 and -3
which is,
is 4 negative.
that's right, -4. Okay, and that's basically combine addition and subtraction. You may have a long line of them. Let's say you have -2 plus 5 minus 3 minus 7. Something like this. You can do this left to right. Okay, so these can do left to right. You can evaluate this first. For example, that's +3. Then evaluate the other one. It's -10. And if we combine the two, we get -7. So left to right, when you have addition and subtractions together, just work your way through it, left to right. Actually, if we said left to right, so let's do this one first. So it would be +3, -3, -7. Then again, left to right, we're going to do this one first. So +3, -3, these cancel out, you end up with -7. Okay, so do one at a time, left to right. Let's combine some. Here's another one here. Again, try to identify the operations. Decide which one to do first. So what do we do first here?
We do division.
Division, that's right. So as we learned before when we did the order of operations, these are done left to right. These are also left to right. Okay, even though it says multiplication first here, we're not doing the multiplication. When it has a division next to it, or here, we do them left to right. So we're going to evaluate this one first, not that one. And what is this equal to?
It's equal to -5
That's right, -5 here. Bring them up,
times 2.
and it will be
10, positive 10.
that's right. So negative times a negative, so that's positive. And 10. You may also see something like this. Or divide by, okay, you can divide this by 2 also. All right, so what do we do first here? What do we evaluate first?
Multiplication.
That's right, so multiplication, division, again, left to right. Whichever appears first is done first. This will be?
-14
Very good. And
divided by 2.
divided by 2.
That is -7.
Nice. Now let's combine everything together. Going to combine division, addition, everything together. So let's say -3 and -2 plus 5 divide. Let's say 9 or -9. All right, again, according to the order of operations, what do we do first? Where do we start from? Everybody in the room,
So 3, the parentheses,
that's right? We're gonna start from here. All right, it's -2 plus 5.
3, -3,
Not -3.
+3. Okay.
+2.
One over higher, so it would be 3 here, or +3. Bring this one down here, bring the division down. And okay, after the parentheses, do we have any exponents? Let's actually make this an exponent, okay? Let's make this an exponent. After the parentheses, we need to evaluate the exponent first. This one.
6. No, 9.
9.
Right. And bring this down. So it's not 9 times 3 yet. It's this first. A lot of people make that mistake. Do not make that mistake. Evaluate the exponents first if you have them. Divide -9. All right, we're down to 2 operations. Which one do we do first? Multiplication.
The
Multiplication.
multiplication.
That's right. We have multiplication and division.
+27.
Just like this one here. Multiplication first. So negative times a positive would be
+27.
not positive.
Oh, no, yeah, because
Negative
multiplication,
27.
negative. Yeah, I'm confused with it.
So -27 divide -5. Finally, down to the division. Again, get the sign first and get it right. Will be
3, -3.
+3.
positive. We have a negative, divide a negative. Just
Mhm.
like multiplying a negative and negative would be plus.
Yes.
And 3. Okay, a bunch of signs of different operations. So we know our order, we know our signs. You don't have to invent anything, just apply the rules, buy the book, and you get your answer, okay? You don't even have to think too much about this. Just look at the steps and you get your answer here. Let's do one more here. Say 2 or 12 divided by and we're going to multiply this by something. Okay, so we have all this. You may even add something here. Let's say, let's add another number here. All right, so a lot going on here, a lot of signs. It is the order of operations. What's the very first thing you do?
We do the parentheses.
That's right. Let's start from here. Only thing that we need to do first. Everything else will stay the same. We're going to evaluate this. -1 minus 4 is
That one is 4 positive. Negative. I'm getting confused with that.
so these can be confusing. These two numbers.
Oh, yeah. It's, yeah, in addition,
It's a common mistake. A lot of people make that mistake, but these are not equal. Here stays negative. Here turns positive because we're multiplying. Here we're not.
we're multiplying right now, right?
Yeah, we're multiplying.
Ah,
Here we don't
Right.
multiply. It's a subtraction. There's no sign of multiplication, no parentheses. It's not like this.
okay.
See,
So
so it's just a plain subtraction addition here. The sign, the negative stay the same. Only turns positive if you have a negative and negative, or if you have a double negative like this. Negative, parentheses, negative. That's when you multiply.
yeah.
So this
I-
one, subtraction, so it would be
So that one is 4.
negative.
-4.
Negative 4, okay?
Uh-huh.
Because there's no multiplication here, just subtraction. Okay, we're going to bring everything else down. All right, so we're done with the multiplication or the parentheses. What else?
So now the division.
Okay, we don't have exponents. we go to multiplication and division. If we have them next to each other, we do left to right.
Oh, okay.
So what operation do we do next?
Division
Right, so division before this. Positive 12 divided negative 4 is,
is 3 negative.
that's right, negative 3. Bring the multiplication down. Bring the negative 10 down. Okay, we're down to 2 operations. We have a multiplication here.
So now is positive 6.
That's right, negative times a negative. We know it's going to be positive.
Minus 10.
Okay, so finally, positive 10, positive 6 minus 10 will be
Is negative 4.
very good. So the sign of the higher number and the difference of the two is 4. And that's basically, those are all the signs you need. And they are very, very important in math. Without signs, you won't be able to do anything. Everything will not make sense. Everything will be too hard. But the signs make it's a very useful tool. You need it to do a lot of things. I mean, in math, to understand almost every topic, signs are very important. So if you understand this now, you will never have a problem with signs, and you're going to need them a lot in the next math class, math 2, and then college algebra, and so on. So review this whenever you get confused. And again, there's 2 rules here and 2 for multiplication and division. That's it. 4 rules altogether. Again,
Professor, I'm confused about the last.
the last one. Which part exactly? Which part? Which step of this one you didn't get? Okay, let me go over this one again. So first, we need to start from the parentheses. So we're going to evaluate the inside. Negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4.
Right.
Give this sign an add. Now we have division, multiplication, and subtraction. When we have division and multiplication next to each other, which one we do first? Left,
We do the division first.
left or right, whichever comes first, okay?
Mhm.
Whichever comes first. So we did the division first. 12 divided negative 4. It's negative 3. Sign is negative. Bring down the multiplication and the subtraction. Now we have a multiplication between negative and a negative.
Right.
It's a positive. Times 2, that's 6. Bring down this. Finally, this is a subtraction. There's no multiplication, it's just subtraction. You gotta pick the sign of the higher number, and which is negative.
What is the sign of that's where I'm getting confused. Is that a positive sign or a negative sign? Because if that's a subtraction, then wouldn't that be a positive sign?
So we have 10 here, has a negative next to it. We have 6 has a positive next to it. Sometimes it's invisible. If you don't see it, it's a positive. So we pick the sign of the higher number, the sign that's next to the higher number. In this case, this. Once you do that, take the difference of the two. So the difference of 6 and 10 is 4. That's what we did in the very beginning here. Pick the sign of the higher number and the difference of the two. Okay? Or you can think of
I
it.
think I understand that part. What I think I'm misunderstanding is the 10 at the end. Didn't it start out as a positive sign?
Where was it? The 10, it was never a positive. It's negative.
Then what's
That's a subtraction, not a negative sign. That's a negative sign, not a subtraction.
It is a subtraction. It is also a negative sign. It's both. So in terms of operations, if you want to identify operations, you say we have a division, multiplication, and subtraction. In terms of signs, at the end here, at the very end, we end up with a positive number and a negative 10 number. We combine them. So one of them is going to win. The one that wins is the one with the higher value. Okay, so we have more positives than negatives. So,
Teacher.
I think that's where I'm getting confused because if 2 and 3 is positive 6, and then the next thing would be minus 10, right?
yep, that's what we did. This is a subtraction here. Positive 6.
But 10 wouldn't be a positive number?
Why would
Right.
it be a positive number?
Because I don't, that's where I'm getting confused with the double negative.
The 10 from the beginning was negative. Always.
Okay.
And the 3 was the both 3 and 2 are negative, so it became positive because in multiplication
I got that.
uh-huh.
What like I said, I think I'm getting confused because the problem says at the beginning minus 10.
Yeah.
But you're saying that that's negative 10.
Yes, from the beginning he just put it down the same.
Yeah, minus 10 and negative 10 are technically the same thing. Okay.
Okay.
The same thing. Maybe when you say minus, you mean it as an operation. When you say negative, you mean it as a sign, but they're pretty much the same. So again, think of this as, what's 3 minus 4?
Negative 1.
Negative 1. That's the same thing as here. Maybe I wrote the sign too close to 10. It got you confused or something, right?
Probably.
The sign's usually somewhere in the middle, like that. I mean, that was a negative. Should be here in the middle. If that makes more sense, I don't know. Okay, so it's the same operation, just using the rules.
Teacher,
Yes.
please, you can tell me if I see one operation, how can I know if the operation is only division or multiplication or subtraction?
Okay, so for example, this one here. Division is clearly visible here. So division is either with a division sign or a fraction. Multiplication, as I explained earlier, if you don't see anything between number and parentheses, there's an invisible multiplication. So this is like this. That's why I wrote it here. Other than that, if you see just a number and the sign, this is a subtraction, this is addition. Okay, so just, you'll see it clearly here. For example, there's nothing in between. So this is a multiplication. Unless you see this, if you see subtraction, then it's a different story. If you see division, it will be a different story. But if you don't see anything between a number and parentheses or between two parentheses, that's a multiplication. Same thing here. There's nothing between this minus and parentheses. Think of it as a negative 1 times. Negative 1 times it. Think of it like this. And use the appropriate rules. So you need to figure out what operation it is first. We either use these rules or these rules. So it's very important to know what operations there are. So when you see an operation like this, first thing you want to do is identify all the operations from this list or from this acronym here. Parentheses, exponents, and so on. So for example here, you should notice that we have a multiplication here. We have parentheses, of course. And inside the parentheses, we have this addition here. We have an exponent, we have a division by 9. So these are the operations. Then you use the order of operations to simplify them. So start from the parentheses, we have an addition, it turned into 3. After that, we did the exponent, 3 to the 2nd is 9. After this, we end up with an invisible multiplication. Again, could have been like this. It's the same as this, if you don't see nothing here. So we have multiplication and division. Again, these are always done left to right. Whichever is first is done first. If the division is here, we do it first. If the multiplication is here, we do it first. You multiply these, you get 27, bring down this, finally division. Negative divided negative is positive, 27 by 9 is 3. Okay, so we're combining PEMDAS with these rules. So this is basically your recap for the whole thing. This is all you need to understand and remember. That's all. If you know this, you can solve any problem. And along with, of course, the order of operations.
When the operation starts, right?
Say that again?
This depends when the operation starts, right?
That's right, yeah. the order of operations tells you where to start from. Parentheses first if you have them, if not, exponents and so on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Everybody else, any other questions? Before I give you some practice. And when you know the rules, only 4 of them, you can do the math faster than a calculator or a phone. You can literally answer these in less than a second. If you're gonna use a phone or a calculator, it's gonna take you more seconds, 3 or 5 seconds at least. But that's why we wanna learn the rule. We don't wanna rely on calculators and phones all the time because they might not always be available to us. With that being said, I'll give you a few practice problems here to do on your own. Okay, again, do it yourself, look at the rules. I don't care about the answer, I want to know that you know how to do it. So do it yourself, looking at the examples we just did, the rules. Most of them will take you, like I said, less than a second or a second max. If you have one of these, it may take you a little more time. But if individual operations like these usually don't take time. So let's say positive 3 minus positive 5 minus that, negative 3 plus 7, and minus 6. And finally, okay, I'll give you, all right, so take some time to work on these. And we'll go over these once you're done. Okay, everybody, are you finished?
Yeah.
Everybody else, you guys done?
Yes.
All right, let's go over these problems together. What do you get here?
Three.
Plus 3.
Positive 3.
Mhm.
Here.
Minus, plus, minus. I think,
That's
Negative
4.
10.
no.
Negative 1.
4.
4.
4.
I think it's 4. Mhm.
Okay.
Minus is minus. That is
9,
minus 9.
Right, negative 9.
Plus
6,
plus
That's
6
That's right, positive 6. The 2 minuses, 3 in total.
minus plus
12,
Negative 7.
Not negative 7. What do you do first? Let's do this two
is
steps.
12.
that is plus
Oh.
4 minus plus 4 minus 3
Yeah.
minus that is 1.
Right, 1.
Mm-hmm.
Here.
And that's minus that is 4
First, we're going to turn this, multiply,
2.
minus inside of
What?
oh sorry 2. She right.
multiply these, you got a negative, that's right. 5 minus 3.
Minus 3 so 2.
And
This is the part. Minus please minus please oh
Is that 4?
minus 2 minus
minus is first. This is negative,
minus 3
Is it 3?
right, negative 3.
minus 2 divided by 2.
2.
Please. That is positive 6.
6 divided by 2
Divided by 2, the fuck is 3.
is 3.
Yeah.
And
Minus
this one
2
here,
divided minus
where do we start from?
minus
Start here.
1. Hold on.
Yeah, 1.
And everything else stays the same for now.
minus 4 minus 15. This is where I stop.
Like 25, 20, 20.
So this is, we've done the parentheses. What comes after the parentheses in the order of operations?
The exponent.
Or 3 times.
Exponent. We have an exponent here. What's 1 to the third?
Minus 12.
1.
Oh, that's 3.
1 times 1 times 1 is 1. Bring the division down. Times that by negative 4. And we have division and multiplication. What do we do after that?
9 minus
Do
4.
the,
Minus 10.
Division.
Minus 4.
that's 10
Division 10, negative 10.
times negative 4 is 40
Right, it's positive 40
Positive 40.
is
divided by
minus 40 minus 50.
minus 15 is, I did this right here. Why can't I find
25. Okay, so then we have this one here.
it? Okay.
Division first. That would be negative 2.
Negative 2 times negative 1.
Mm-hmm.
So positive 2.
Positive 2. And finally, that one here.
Positive
Yeah, this
12 divided by
exercise.
3.
No,
What do we do first again? Sorry.
I don't understand this.
Positive 12 divided by 3.
That's right. You know, multiply first. Negative times negative 6 times negative 2 is positive 12. Divide. Divided by 3
Is 4. Negative
will be
4.
4. And that's pretty much it. Okay. Any questions, everybody?
I'm gonna go do
Yes, teacher.
stay here.
This operation, I don't understand when you say subtraction 10, division, this part, Why is 1?
We do the parentheses. Negative 3 plus 4 is 1.
1.
Then we do the exponent. 1 to the third is 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1. Bring it down to 10, the division, and everything else. Then we do the division. Negative 10 divided by 1 is negative 10. Any number divided by 1 is itself. Bring these down. Finally, we multiply these two before the subtraction. Negative 10 times negative 4 is 40. Negative or minus 15. And the final answer is 25. Okay, again, we follow PEMDAS. We should know PEMDAS. What we used. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, everybody?
No, this is on a